Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of AQA GCSE Geography. Today we're going to be looking at topic 2A, Urban Issues and Challenges, and this is the first video in the series, and we're going to be diving straight in with the very first subtopic, which is Urban Trends and Changes. And this subtopic is an introduction to the Urban Issues and Challenges topic. It sort of looks at a few key definitions that you need to know, and just gives you a really good grounding for the rest of the topic, and it helps you to understand what we mean by urbanization and urban areas. So we're going to be looking at the first part of the topic in today's video. But before we dive in with that, we're going to be taking a look at our specification, and this is the specification reference which I'll be putting up at the start of every video. We can see that we're in topic 3.2.1, and if you're following the AQA syllabus, that's exactly where in the syllabus you'll be able to find this section of the topic. And the two bullet points we're going to be covering today are firstly the global pattern of urban change, and also urban trends in different parts of the world, including HICs and LICs. And don't worry if you don't understand what that means, we're going to be looking at that in this video. We're going to be defining those terms and helping you really get a good understanding of the first part of this topic. So let's jump in with the content of this topic. First of all, we're going to be defining what urbanization actually is. Urbanization means where there is an increase in the number of people living in urban areas. And urban areas just means cities, basically. It means an area where there is a very high population density, where there are many people living together, and there's a lot of developed infrastructure, which means lots of buildings, lots of people. That's an urban area, which is also defined as a city. So basically, urbanization is where there are more people living in cities. And we're going to look now at how that definition can be applied to an exam question. And this is a typical question which you get in an exam using a graph. So the question is, describe how the rural and urban populations have changed from 1950 to the present day. And this is 4 marks, so you'd be expected to make a few points here. We can see first of all that our command word is describe, and that means we're just stating what's happening. We're not explaining. That would be explain. There are different command words as well, like evaluate, assess, which we'll look at in later videos. But for this question, we just need to describe what's going on. So if we look at our graph here, we'd need to make reference to the graph in the exam in our answer. We can see that the graph shows data from 1950 to 2020. We can also see that it shows both the urban population and the rural population, and the population is in millions as well. So be careful when you're reading data from the graph to use the exact unit that they've given, and here it's defined in millions. So we can make a point about how the urban population, first of all, has increased. We can see that it starts at just under 1 billion, and it increases over the decades to about 4.5 billion in 2020. So that's an increase in the urban population. We can also see that there's an increase in the rural population from about 2 billion to about 3.5 billion people. So both urban and rural has increased. However, another point we could make is that the urban population has grown at a faster rate than the rural population. The urban population, in fact, overtook the rural population in about 2010, or perhaps a bit before that, let's say 2008. That's when the urban population was larger than the rural population. So that's another point you can make. So if you're describing what's happening, we can see that both have increased. Urban has increased at a faster rate than rural, and by 2020, there are more people living in urban areas than rural areas than there were in 1950, where it was the other way around. So we've seen, how this can be applied to a question, and we're going to move on and talk about trends and changes in HICs and LICs. So first of all, let's look at HICs, and HIC simply means high income country. So this refers to more developed countries, perhaps where there's better infrastructure, where people have a higher quality of life, and those regions are generally in Europe, in North America, also in parts of Asia, Australia as well. But we're mainly going to be looking at Europe and North America. Those are the continents we're focusing on. Before 1950, these two continents, Europe and North America, were the most urbanized, i.e. they had the most number of people living in cities. And this was because of industrialization during the Industrial Revolution. And this was a series of changes and reforms in Europe that started in Europe, in fact, started in the United Kingdom, which led to machinery being used to develop different products. It led to workers being used on a larger scale. And all of these changes, which led to more and more factories, led to rural-urban migration. And that's a key term you need to learn. Rural-urban migration means people moving from rural areas to urban areas. And people did this simply to get jobs in cities. There were more jobs because of industrialization. People wanted to take advantage of that, so they moved to cities. HICs in Europe and North America now have slow growth rates, but they have a large proportion of people living in urban areas. So many people are living in cities, but that number isn't increasing by very much nowadays. And now we're going to compare that to LICs and NEEs. So LICs refers to low-income countries. So these are perhaps the poorer parts of the world. And NEEs refers to newly emerging economies. And these are also perhaps poorer countries, but those whose economies are developing rapidly, they're experiencing rapid economic growth, and they're countries which are emerging as potential HICs in the future. And countries which can be defined in this way as NEEs include Brazil, India, and India is in fact an example we're going to look at again during the changing economic world topic, which is a different topic which we'll look at later. So, countries which can be defined as LICs and NEEs are experiencing rapid economic growth. This means also that the number of people living in urban areas is rapidly increasing. So more and more people are moving to urban areas and the populations there are increasing because of economic growth, because there are more jobs, there's more opportunities for people. And Africa and Asia are the continents which have the highest rates of urban growth. And this is particularly the case in China, India, and Nigeria. And it will be quite good to learn those countries as examples for places with high rates of urban growth. So there are rapidly more and more people coming to cities, and the populations of cities are increasing rapidly. So we've got a nice question here to kind of summarize that. The map below shows the percentage of each country's population that lives in an urban area. Describe and explain these trends. So we can see the map and the different colors that are shown, and this is similar to a map you might get in your exam. And we can use the information we've just learned to answer this question. We can see that Europe and North America predominantly, and also parts of South America and Australia, and also parts of the Middle East, they have very, very high levels of urbanization. We can see that they've got potentially 80 to 100% of people living in cities. And the question has told us to describe and explain. So we not only state that, but we use the knowledge we have to suggest a reason for that. So we know that industrialization during the Industrial Revolution led to more people moving to urban areas, and that's why there are so many people living in urban areas in Europe and North America. And then we can use the map to describe urbanization in parts of Asia and also parts of Africa. So we can see in Africa there are more countries which are red and orange, and also in parts of Asia as well. We can see India, for example, Pakistan, Afghanistan. We can also see parts of East Africa, including Kenya, Somalia, Tanzania. These are countries which have low levels of urbanization, although they're experiencing rapid economic growth. So there is an increasingly larger number of people in these countries who are living in urban areas. So that brings us to the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching, and please do subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with all the content from this channel so you're fully equipped for your exams. If you have any questions or any requests or any comments whatsoever, please do comment down below and I'd be happy to answer every single one of them. Join us next time for more.